Right, what I'm going to talk about, if I can be as brief as possible, is about pros and cons of testing alone. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the literature seems to assume that you're part of a team of at least one other tester. And that's only been my experience in one of the roles I've been in. I've been in 3 testing roles in as many years. With 5 years actually doing testing. The last current job and the previous job, I'm the only one that I know of doing software testing. Well, they've not come out of the wood.
I hear strange testing sounds coming from under the floor.
It's in the next room.
My last company was only 15 people, so I knew everyone. I currently work for the University of Nottingham. I've been there since October, and there's 6,000 people there, about 500 in my department. And they may be in a corner somewhere, but effectively I'm on my own. Now, I need to make a distinction between testing alone and being the only one testing. It's not quite the same thing. I might have a show of hands of who currently works as the only tester in their organisation. It really is just me. This reveals so much about me, but I'm going to say it anyway because, you know.
So what about per project? Because there's a few of us, but we've got a few projects.
Now, yeah, you can test on your own, like in a silo, because you're on one project and you've got colleagues on their own project. But it's not quite the same thing as being alone. If you're the only person doing that in the company, and that's what I'm talking about. So I presume then, if I can have a show of hands, I think that's everyone who currently works as a tester in a team. Team being at least one person. It was a test, of course, yeah. Well, that's got box, I hope that was the answer. Yeah, now there's a difference between being on your own and alone. Now, it's always better to work in a team, I think that's a given. I don't think anyone can argue with that. If you do, I'm going to have to cut this short.
How about a murder-suicide? Better not to be in a team because you kill fewer people?
Well, we should just to...
Don't challenge a room of testers to make exceptions.
If we say anything creative, which is kind of the, you know, IT is creative, let's be honest, which is why it goes wrong so many times. And I think being in a team is preferable to being alone. Not always, but on balance. That's how I feel anyway. So I can only speak from my own point of view.
Paintings are better when done by a group than when a great master works alone. Da Vinci's paintings would have been better if he had hooked up with someone.
The way I see it is that organisations are often late to the testing party. They typically reach a point where software quality is really beginning to bite them, and they say we've got to get a tester in. So they get one in, but because it's an unknown quantity, they get just one person in. That's me. And it may be a small company, in which case, you know, one person is reasonable. But it's how do you deal with that? So the pros, obviously, are you set the agenda. You're the only person doing the job. They kind of look to you to do it. You know, you can set the pace within reason. You've got deadlines, but you know you can set your own goals. You control the environment to a certain extent. How you want to test, what software, if you've got a budget. You know, and you're your own boss. So the cons are you're your own boss. Depending on what type of person you are, that may be a bad thing. If you're someone like, as I think we've learned Adam, then you may be you want to go off on a tangent all the time, quite difficult to keep on track. But the cons are, of course, the entirety of testing in inverted commas, is on you. The company looks to you as being responsible to a certain degree, usually a greater degree, of like, if this ships with bugs, what have you done wrong? Never mind the bugs were in the first place and you didn't put them there, you've got to discover them. They're not interested in that because they don't understand testing. So you can't delegate work. If it's a team of you, you've got a colleague, you can perhaps, you know, if it's a heavy workload, you can put someone around. You also can't take it off them because it's just you. You have to know yourself. You really have to know yourself. I'm still learning who I really am. I don't always like what I see. Strengths and weaknesses. I've got many weaknesses. Cue cards is one of them, sorry about that. It can take years to discover who you are. I think we often do that anyway, but if you're the only person doing that job, it really does kind of you know, live or die by what kind of attitude you take. And what happens when you run out of steam? Now, I don't know about you, but all human beings, if I'm on a project for more than, say, I'm on myself a project, more than a couple of weeks, you've kind of explored everything you can. You've gone in every single direction you can. You're seeing the same screens over and over. You just start glazing over. Nothing. You can't do anything about it, like human. It's like we've all done crosswords where you can do most of it in 5 minutes and you get stuck on one clue. You're there for ages and ages and ages. You can't work it out. Someone could look over your shoulder. Oh, 5 down is this. They get it straight away. Another pair of eyes. Yeah. And we know about, you know, many pairs of eyes make all bugs shallow. You may have heard all that. Yeah. Unfortunately, the converse is if you've got one pair of eyes, there are entire species of bug you don't even know about because you get stuck in a pattern of thinking, just because it's one mind on it. So they're the cons. So how do you get on with this? It's all moaning about it. What if you're the only one? Well, try and join a company where you're not the only person doing it. That's the pattern I've not been able to establish. Yeah, not very easy to do, but it's that'll help you out. Persuade your manager to hire another tester. Yeah, right. I have been down that road, promised and promised and promised, eventually left the company. Couldn't do it alone. That's not a weakness, it's just like I got to the point where I can't do all of this. Reduce the workload, or get more than one of me. No, didn't happen, so I moved on. Involve other people, don't have to be testers. Developers, not their own projects though. Designers, BAs, project managers, whoever else who may have an interest in it, but who's not directly working on the project because they have a bias. No project manager is going to willingly delay the project any further by helping you find more bugs. But try and rope people in if you can. They may take an interest in what you do, which will raise your profile, and you've got another pair of eyes. However inexperienced they are at testing, they'll find stuff you didn't even think about. And it's not an admission of defeat. A lot of people don't like doing this because it kind of says, it waves a flag that says, I don't know quite what I'm doing here, I found all this, but there's some stuff I can't find, can you help me? They're not asking for help often. So, you know, there's a kind of a bias to, like, say, to not reveal your shortcomings. Doesn't matter, you're part of a team, part of a bigger team, just doing a project, you're all kind of responsible in the section, but your own roles. But you know, the project flies or sinks, depending on how you all put in. So don't be scared of doing that. The other thing, of course, is to get some perspective on it. Come to events like these. This is my first one. Don't put in my last one, as the tour goes. And just get some perspective. Read what other people say. Read what people think. You know, people have been in this position before. Some people have never been in this position. A lot of you looking at me like, why are you talking about this? There are other ways of doing things. If you're on your own, or some of you in like silent projects where it's only you working on it, there's some help out there. And try and, if you're kind of in a company that does the kind of the same stuff all the time, you can get a bit inured to it. So there's nothing stopping you in your own time if you want to, if you have that time, looking at other, open source community projects where you can kind of test if you download the source code, test it if you want. There's a whole site called UTest that outsources testing. You can do it for free and you get points. You don't have to worry about the money about it. It's just kind of an interesting thing to do. And getting a perspective on how other people see things. So that's kind of it. And if you've got any questions, a lot of kind of interesting looking faces suggest you have. Fire away now.
Have you developed a group of colleagues that might not work at the same company as you, but you talk with them on a regular basis?
I'm getting there. I'm putting my own cue cards where my mouth is and kind of on that road at the moment. But it's kind of getting there. It's going to be difficult because obviously you're basically asking for kind of help outside. But people all the time. But it's can be. Not saying this project's got to go out tomorrow. Help me do it. That's ridiculous. You'd have to consult for that. But just a bit more of a I'm a bit more perspective on, I've reached a point I can't go further. Have you got any ideas about how to approach something?
There are lots of us out there that like to help people like you.
Yeah.
And we get a lot out of that. So, reach out.
That's it.
Michael Bolton and I, we definitely, and anyone who we coach, part of the condition of the free coaching we give is they better help other people.
Yeah.
We want to have this, it's a kind of that open source mentality of spread it around, help each other. And so there's a lot of people on Twitter that I could point you to who might be, I mean, there may be NDA issues with helping you on your thing, but they would not
That's
be,
always a difficult thing, yeah, but not
they would find it fun to help you on your project.
Yeah.
To some degree.
But it's
to charm them.
So say a lot of the literature and a lot of the kind of experience tends to be, as I just learned by doing that little straw poll, as I kind of thought it would, most people work with other testers, or have access to the testers.
I've heard of an article called The Omega Tester, which is all about working by yourself on a testing.
No, but I'm going to read it.
It's the most recent article that I wrote
on
The Omega Tester. So it was, I can send you a copy of it, because I came up with a bunch of ideas like you did, and you might find it interesting.
I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in a situation where not only was I the only tester, I was the first tester they ever had in place.
Yeah.
And that was so I just went in there and they tried to like I was reading that your lessons in software testing. And they were trying to make me the quality cop of the whole place.
Yeah.
I was like, hell no, I'm not doing it. No way, I'm not doing it. So I started basically I started going around to all the different departments and just trying to clue them in onto the fact that none of us really want any bugs in this thing, so we can all contribute to not getting bugs into the thing, into the product, and that was quite useful. I started reaching out within the company because everybody wanted a tester there.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the way forward.
Yeah. And the danger of that being that situation, you may have felt, and correct me if I presume something that wasn't the case, but they need to do something about quality. They get someone who knows about testing. They expect it to kind of magically turn around in 6 weeks, 6 months, some magic time period, bigger than one person can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
you can make good inroads and you can make a difference. You can't make it perfect. And it's about setting your station out. It's like, you're not a quality gateway because you don't decide whether things ship or not. Project manager does or director does or whatever. But you can advise them. And they choose to ignore you. Often the case.
No, well, see, I didn't have that problem.
No?
I basically was really like, here's what I can do for you guys.
Yeah.
Here's what I can't do for you guys.
Yeah.
And here's what we could probably do if we work together and figure out what we need to do. But I'm not the guy. If it ships and there's bugs in it, don't come say that's your fault, bro. Because if you want to start getting the blame game, we don't put the bugs in there.
That's it. But a lot of people do think that, though, and there is kind of like a perception that the bugs stuck with you, to call it that phrase. But yeah, it is interesting because some people think that if you can't say we're all in this together, which you are, and if you've asked me for kind of help to make a product, just you get it polished and just get it out there, or you're up against a time something like that. Some people put up a bit of resistance to say, well, that's your job. I don't want to do your job. You're paid to do that job. You've got to kind of get on, as you say, get on board with it. Say it's a team thing. Let's just do this final way together.
I was looking. I had like an information architect there who was on. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had a couple of developers on my side. Had some because it was a digital marketing agency. And there was some designer, creative people who I got on board. I got them on board quite quick. That helped. So had some allies. That's the key.
That's it. Any more questions there?
Oh no, mine's a statement. I want to agree and underline what James was saying, that the wider community is great, and also you've got a lot of people in this room that I'm sure are very happy to offer advice to help in any way that they can do.
Yeah.
I've been in the same situation you've been in. I was in a separate office. The base was in Nottingham. I was in a separate office in Derby. A whole office on my own, a testing lab on my own for most of the time, which was really quite depressing.